Hi, everyone. Welcome to Potentials. This is Ligia, and I have Ed Kuberski back on the show. We're going to be doing a tribute to Dr. Wood, who sadly passed recently in August. And we're going to do show a lot of pictures, and he was the editor of a book that was written by William Tompkins. And so we're going to be sharing his resume and other interesting items from Dr. Wood. Thanks again for being back, Ed, and really appreciate you doing this episode.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. We'll probably have this up on Technology Envoy as well.
Yes.
And yeah, it's sad. It's kind of sad to that Dr. Wood passed. I did have contact with him, and we'll share an email that I had with him. I sent him the my papers from Paul Laviolette that were actually we now have it on YouTube through the Starburst Foundation. I sent him a hard copy of that, and I also sent him a hard copy of New Aerospace Technologies, the book that I was asked to edit and have a look at, that Alexander Frolov, the former owner of the Faraday Lab in St. Petersburg, Russia, wrote. And it is probably the best ether physics book that has ever been written. So Dr. Wood was really happy to have got the hard copies. I sent him a package down. I sent a package down, and it ended up that Ryan, his son, got it, and then his son passed it on. Ryan passed it on to Dr. Wood, and Dr. Wood sent me an email back. And I actually talked to Dr. Wood on the phone as well too. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through here. But
Well, that's
yeah,
awesome. It's looking forward to sharing this information with everyone. Um, we're going to start with this. Let me move this out of the way because I can't see. We're going to start with this eulogy um, that Ed has sent to me. It is
yeah,
with profound sadness that I announce the passing of my father, Dr. Robert Bob M. Wood, who left us on August 26th, 2024, at Hoag Hospital in Newport Beach, California, due to cardiopulmonary arrest. He was 96 years old. A memorial service to celebrate his remarkable life will be held at the United Methodist Church in Costa Mesa, California on Sunday, September 29th at 2 p.m. Dr. Wood was a man of extraordinary intellect, integrity, and curiosity, whose contributions to the fields of aerospace engineering and UFO research have left an indelible mark on both scientific and ufological communities. Born on April 4th, 1928, in Ithaca, New York, Bob's journey through life was characterized by a relentless pursuit of knowledge and a deep commitment to uncovering the truths that lie beyond our immediate understanding.
yes, it was all about the truth. Actually, that's the one thing for sure. Um, Also, people should understand that Dr. Wood and Ryan are both authentic, or they authentic, or they look at documents, and so they're what they
They
do is
authenticated.
exactly they
Yeah.
authenticate documents, and they're the world leading document authenticators, especially for older stuff and stuff that has to do with Majestic 12 and a lot of the stuff with Tompkins and whatnot too. And there is something called the Byrne Memo that I want to talk a little bit about. The Byrne Memo was the kill order from the CIA, and the CIA liked to burn all their documents, so they burned this thing, but somebody pulled it out of the fire, so that's why it's called the Byrne Memo, and it's got scorch all around, but it
Hmm.
is basically the kill order, and Dr. Wood authenticated that, and Dr. Sala wrote a book about it. So that's something that people should understand, that they were world leading document authenticators, and Ryan, I'm sure, is still doing that for sure. Yeah,
Right. Okay, so we'll go to the next one. This is something else that you sent me. Rest in peace, Dr. Bob. Your contributions to science and your unwavering quest for truth will never be forgotten. His son, Ryan S. Wood. And there he
yeah,
is with his son.
yeah. So we're here to honor Dr. Wood. and everything that he did, especially with Tompkins in the book selected by Extraterrestials, which we're going to get into here. But
Yes.
yeah, yeah, he was amazing, man. Yeah,
Yeah, you can just see it in his face. I mean, look at that beautiful smile. He
yeah.
just seems like a really
Um,
nice guy.
something that I could guess I could talk about was Tompkins was in a secret think tank at Douglas Aircraft, and Dr. Wood actually also worked at Douglas Aircraft during the same time that Tompkins did back in the 50s. Dr. Wood has got a PhD of aeronautics. He's a doctor of aeronautics, and he told me one day on the phone that Dr. Wood was also in a special think tank at Douglas after Tompkins left, but um, but he was never in the top echelon think tank that Tompkins was in. So Dr. Wood did end up in a think tank at Douglas Aircraft after Tompkins had left. But the reason why this is so important is because they worked together at Douglas Aircraft during the same time. And this is the same time that Rockwell space chart behind you was Tompkins started working on it, because he started working on it in 1952.
Right.
And as we go through Tompkins' resume, once we talk a little bit more about Dr. Wood, we're going to go into Tompkins' resume, and Ligia's going to read it out to me, and we'll just talk about some of the points that are more important and stuff
Right.
as
And
we
also
go
to
along.
mention, since you mentioned the chart behind me, I will just let everyone know that it's going to be a link in the description so that you can download it yourself and print it out if
Yeah,
you, it's
it'll
actually really high res
yeah,
uh,
PDF. Yeah, so you can
PDF.
print off poster size, because I've done that at the color ones, and it's only about, like, in Canada it's like $15 to have a poster one printed, right? So it's not that expensive. If
Right.
anybody's out there, I've printed off probably dozens of them and sent them all over the place.
Yes, you
Yeah.
have.
Did I send you one? I can't
I
remember.
think you might have. Yeah,
Yeah,
you sent me a lot of things.
yeah, that's for
So
sure.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Okay, so let me share the next one here. It's the his
yeah,
personal message to you, which is really
yeah.
cool.
So I'll let
February of
you.
2023.
Yeah, I'll let you read it, and then I'll talk a little
Sure.
bit about it.
Right. Okay. Eddie, I want to thank you very much for the remarkable friends and relationships that you have with those involved in my hunt for the truth. Frolov's book is a unique discussion of 35 chapters exploring not well-known phenomena. I sure wish I had the 131 figures that accompany his words. Frank Chille and Michael Sala are two of my current contacts. I'm so glad that you gave me this package. Thanks, Dr. Bob Wood. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, and he this is we cropped it off, but he this is where he sent me his phone numbers,
Yeah, his
and yeah,
personal
I
phone number is right under there.
yeah, yeah,
No problem.
I called him up. So the book New Aerospace Technologies, he was really excited to get it,
Right.
and I did provide him with all of those images that he had asked for, because I had screenshots of them, but they weren't in the file, the PDF file for the book itself. Um, it does dive into a lot of really, really interesting things, and it correlates a lot with the papers that I wrote with Paul Laviolette on electrogravitics, essentially.
Cool.
So it was, yeah, very cool to talk to him on the phone,
I bet.
and yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have my satellite yet, and my phone wasn't very good, so a lot of the
Oh.
call got dropped. So
Aw.
I probably talked to him for, I don't know, half an hour, and I missed maybe half the call. It really
Oh,
sucked, actually.
yeah.
Yeah, I wish I would have been able to phone him again. And you know what? Um I think just before he passed away, I had the urge to do that.
Mm.
Probably knowing that, he was,
Yep.
it was close to time for him, but I never did. And
Right.
so, but he was an amazing man, and the book selected by Extraterrestrials is definitely something that is absolutely amazing. We have to honor Dr. Wood
Yeah.
for what he did. So This is the back of the second book, no, the third book, because I've got the second book in my hands. Ligia, I'll let you read this, and then I'll talk a
Mhm.
little bit about those photos, and then at the very bottom, it explains who the editor is, so we can
Right.
focus
Yeah,
on
it's got
that.
the picture
Yeah,
right there in the picture.
yeah,
In multiple interviews given after the publication of Selected by Extraterrestrials in December 2015, William Tompkins revealed the new details of the U.S. Navy's secret space program. The collaboration with human-looking extraterrestrials happening at several aerospace companies. The Navy's World War II espionage program on Nazi flying saucers, and what was happening in Antarctica with a breakaway German space program. Many of these details expand upon or were not found in the two books he authored. Volume 3 presents fresh new information on these and many other topics that facilitate a deeper understanding of secret space programs and what has been hidden for decades with the rest of humanity. That's Michael E. Sala, PhD.
yeah,
And then here we have the Solar Warden Command Center and details of the Solar Warden equipment.
yeah,
And the above photos are from Chapter 2, showing the images being projected on the screen in Bill Tompkins' home and photographed by Michael Sala.
yeah.
There is no reason to doubt his accompanying words attesting to their legitimacy. And then, of course, down here we have the editor. The editor of this book was Robert M. Wood, PhD, and the
Doc,
associate editors were Dr. Sala, PhD, Will Wakely, BS, and John Wenger, PhD.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, so Tompkins and Dr. Wood knew each other quite well. Obviously, he's the main editor of his book. Those two pictures, I actually have permission from. What happened was I contacted Dr. Wood. I wanted to use those two pictures on potentials at some point, and asked him about them, and he said that they were Dr. Sala's, so I would actually have to get permission from Dr. Sala to use them. But he was
Right,
okay with it if I did. So I did get a hold of Dr. Sala, and Dr. Sala said, yes, you can use them. In fact, you can use anything from exopolitics and anything that I've ever done. So we will, and we are on potentials here. But these
very
two
nice.
pictures, like it said, Tompkins had a slideshow, and these are actual Solar Warden pictures. And Dr. Sala, took the pictures from the screen from them being shown. So at some point, I might be able to get a hold of Dr. Sala again and say, hey, do you think we can dig these up and use the original ones? Like I'd like to have the best quality ones to put up on potentials and
Right.
my channel as well, right? Because we're
Yep.
sharing stuff as we go along here. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys. Also, Volume 3 is called My Spoken Words, and most of Volume 3 is stuff off the Jeff Rense radio show. And I was asked on the Jeff Rense radio show, so I've been on that show. And Dr. Sala, Frank Chille, um, they're all in that My Spoken Words Volume 3. And I guess since we're talking about it, we should say that there is a Volume 4. I believe that it's probably close to print or somewhere in that area, and it will come out. It's too bad that it didn't come out before he passed away, though. That, it would have been nice to have that.
Right.
So yeah, so that was, I think he just showed an image of the first one.
Yep.
And
Yep.
this is,
They're all.
yeah, yeah, that's the first one.
Mhm.
And
There's the
this is
second
the
one.
second one.
Yep.
And then there's the third one, My Spoken Words. Again, they're
My
all,
life in the top secret world of UFOs, think tanks, and Nordic secretaries.
yes, yes. That's a that's a whole other matter that we'll talk. Whoops, we'll
Oh,
talk about as we go along. I just picked my thing. Whoops.
oh no.
Okay, so now I think what we're going to do is I wanted to go through William Tompkins' resume. That was part of what I wanted to do with the show today. And there is some stuff that Dr. Wood had written before we jump into Tompkins' resume. And it's important to know that Tompkins' resume doesn't show up until the back of second book. So we read the first book, we read the second book, and it's actually the back of the second book where the resume shows up. But in my view, I think that's why we're doing it this way. I want to do the resume first because it brings out a lot of things that are very important. And as we go through the shows, because we're planning on having a whole bunch of shows where Ligia's going to read to me, and we're going to go through all of Tompkins' books, which is fantastic. So let's go ahead with this. This is written by Dr. Wood, I believe, right?
Yes. Okay, so we're getting back into it.
Yeah.
Bill Tompkins' first book, selected by Extraterrestials. That's what this is from, I guess. His firsthand report of UFOs during the Battle of LA in February 1942, and his personal interaction with Dr. von Braun and Dr. DeBus during Apollo.
Oh,
So
okay, so you're just reading the highlight parts
I
there.
didn't know. You want me to read the whole thing?
Yeah, let me, but
Okay, sorry.
before we do that, let's talk about what you just said there.
Yeah.
So Dr. DeBus, this is really important who Dr. DeBus is. In Project Paperclip, they brought over Werner von Braun and they made him the head of NASA. I call him the poster boy for NASA, but he actually really wasn't the head of NASA.
Right.
Dr. DeBus was, and Dr. DeBus, this is really important. Dr. DeBus came out of the German secret space program, and he was the head guy at Peenemünde. So that's where the Nazi flying bell was, and all of their craft and technologies came out of there.
Wow.
And the whole
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of important that Dr. DeBus was actually kind of running NASA, where Werner von Braun was just kind of the poster boy. And then the second thing that you talked about there, because we're going to start to jump into Tompkins and what happened, is the Battle of LA.
Yeah.
Now, the Battle of LA, Tompkins saw this, and this is part of the reason why I believe that he was actually brought into the program, a very, very special program. And it was Admiral Rico Botto, James Forrestal, who was one of the MJ, I can't remember, I think he was MJ4 or MJ3 or something like that. Both those men brought Tompkins into the special program where there were German spies, our guys, German spies were coming out of Germany and telling Admiral Rico Botto and James Forrestal what they saw. And what they saw was incredible. They had anti-gravity technology. They had flying craft. They had the Nazi flying bell. They had all of these incredible technologies. And the spies would come out and they would sit with Admiral Rico Botto and Bill Tompkins, a very, very young Bill Tompkins. He was really young, a teenager, when he was brought into this project. And this project turned into what is now the Rockwell space chart that is behind you. It turned into Solar Warden. So Tompkins started working on that Rockwell space chart in 1952 when he was working at Douglas Aircraft in those think tanks, essentially. And then they went on to actually do Solar Warden. So these pictures that we just showed you on the back, those are actually a picture of the cockpit of the Solar Warden and then another craft, essentially. So I'll let you carry on. I'm talking too much.
So yeah, that's fine. Bill Tompkins' first book, selected by Extraterrestials, included portions of his life as he remembered them from childhood to about 1970 when he became employed by TRW. Besides seeing his sketch of the TV image of an alien craft on the moon at the same time as the Apollo crew, you would have also read about his talent for remembering details as reflected in his models of Navy ships, his first-hand report of UFOs during the Battle of LA in February 1942, his early access to naval secure installations, his involvement in a secret think tank at Douglas Aircraft during the war, his fortuitous assignment to the same think tank in the 1950s working on an alien issue, his team's interaction with young Bobby Ray Inman on UFOs, his fortuitous meeting with his still lovely wife, Mary, of 65 years, his personal interaction with Dr. von Braun and Dr. DeBus during Apollo, his two major contributions to his successful Apollo program, why he was fired from Douglas, and numerous unsuccessful attempts by alien Nordic secretaries to seduce him. Bill Tompkins' 5 decades since 1970 have included many other amazing experiences that he was in the process of writing about as his first book was published in 2015.
Yeah.
Wow, that late. I didn't realize it was that late. They include revolutionary concepts that apply directly to our society today. What you find in this volume you are now reading also includes his elaboration on the Battle of LA in 1942, exceptional detail on what Navy spies told Admiral Rico Botta what the Germans were doing, which included mind control, life extension, UFO disc production, and their systematic move to Antarctica.
Yeah.
TRW's involvement in ballistic missile defense and space war planning, his firsthand reports of lunar activity and occupancy, TRW's remote viewing work, life extension, and alien chemical warfare, his personal involvement with the Joe Papp engine, his knowledge of alien and our underground secret transportation systems, his exposure to characteristics of various alien races, his personal abduction experiences, his success in training Navy League cadets about UFO and aliens, some insight into other topics he knew about but didn't discuss. And that was Robert Wood, who wrote this in April of 2020.
Yeah, exactly. So it was, I think it was Frank Chille that probably brought Tompkins out to the public, and also Frank released the Rockwell space chart. I think Frank probably knew Tompkins the best, but certainly Dr. Wood would have had a really, really strong relationship with Tompkins, being the main editor of his books.
Right.
So,
So now we're getting into his actual.
Yeah, we're going to get into his resume now, and I was just about to say that
Sorry.
this is where we want to really stop and honor Dr. Wood for all the work that he did.
Yeah.
Especially with Selected by Extraterrestials and William Tompkins, but it would take hours and if not weeks to go through everything that he's actually done. It's truly amazing.
Yeah.
Truly. So very much honor, and Ryan, also, we feel for you because I knew, it was your father, right? So, yeah. Okay, so yeah, let's get into Tompkins' actual resume, and at certain points, I'll just kind of jump in and add a couple things as we go.
Okay.
There's a lot here, so I'll just let you read.
Okay. Yes, he's got an extensive resume. It started in May 30th, 1923. Born in Los Angeles is where he started, in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough. September 1st, 1934, attended Gardiner Junction Grade School in Hollywood. And then 7/1/35, he moved to Long Beach, California, near Rainbow Pier. Then 9/1 in 36, he started to make some models. September 1st, again, in 37, he attended Long Beach Trade School. In February of 38, he moved back to Hollywood and made more models. In September of 38, he attended Bancroft Junior High in Hollywood. And then in May of 39, a few models displayed at Hollywood High School.
I'll just talk a little bit about the models. Tompkins had an absolutely incredible memory, and most of these models were naval ships, and he built them so precisely that eventually the Navy came knocking on his door and said, "Hey, how come you're showing where these radar antennas are and all this classified stuff?" And I believe that when they knocked on the door, they talked to Tompkins' father, and they thought it was his father that was doing this. And they said, no, no, it's my son. And his son was a teenager at the time,
Yeah,
right? So yeah, just want to talk about that because he's really famous for these models, and there was lots and lots and lots of them.
that's
Yeah,
usually how it starts. You get a knock on the door.
yeah. They were made out
So
of balsa wood.
balsa wood, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I
So
used
it
to make
says,
balsa wood airplanes actually with my father.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
I remember those. I remember balsa wood model airplane models when I was a kid.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Many models displayed at Broadway department store in Hollywood Boulevard. So that's impressive. That was
Mhm.
in 39. So he started his 11th grade Hollywood high school. And then in October, he was a speaker at the Hollywood Bowl on naval ships.
Mhm.
And then in 1940, he was Commander Perry reviews ship model documentation.
Yeah.
In March of 41, 1941, interrogated by Navy. And March 26, 1941, Evening Outlook clipping. So
That's what I was
that's
talking about
that's
when
a
they knocked.
newspaper.
Yeah, when they
Yeah,
knocked on his door. I
right.
believe that was the
That was
time.
when
Yeah.
that happened. Yeah, in 1941. So in
Yeah.
June of 41, the Navy got him a job at a secret facility, Vultee Aircraft Company, Downey, waiting for top secret clearance.
Yeah.
And then finally in February 25th, 1942, you saw the Battle of LA at Long Beach.
So
And then he was
let's
sworn.
talk a little bit about the Battle of LA because the Battle of LA, there was alien craft in the sky, and the Navy and the Army shot high caliber guns at them
Right.
all night. I mean, like all night. They used all the rounds that they had,
Yep. I
and
remember that.
nothing was happening to these ships.
Nope.
Apparently, they were like bouncing off them, and nothing was happening to them.
Mhm.
I believe in the long run, I think they did take two ships down, and I can't
Really?
remember where. Yeah, I can't remember where I found out about that. It might be in Tompkins' work, but it might not be. I don't remember now. But
Huh.
they brought two down
Hmm.
during that period. But what's really important though was that Tompkins saw this. He
Yeah.
actually
He
saw these
witnessed it
craft,
happening.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I
Yeah.
said, it was all night and right into the morning that this occurred. And there's actual pictures of this them shooting at this thing on the front page of probably the Hollywood paper, right?
Well, it said right there, it says right here, the Evening Outlook clipping.
There you
So
go. Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah,
that's maybe that was it, but I'm
yeah.
not sure. So anyway, but that might have been beforehand now that I look at it. But sworn into Navy boot camp, then staffed to Admiral Rico Botta, secret head of naval intelligence on alien threats to Earth. And he had a top secret Q clearance,
Let's
which is
talk a little.
amazing.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that because we have
Yeah.
talked about Q before on potentials.
Yes. Yep.
I have talked a lot about Q before on potentials.
Yep.
This I don't know if this is the exact origin of Q, but this is really the beginning of Q and that Rockwell space chart behind you, and now Q is very important into all of the politics that are happening, especially with Trump. There's a lot going on with that, but we won't talk about that. But just wanted to talk about the Q clearance because that is the highest clearance that one could ever have, essentially, in
Is
my
that why
understanding.
Q is named Q?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
this is the origin of Q, and everything that we know about Q really
Okay.
comes back to this because of Tompkins and what he did, and so on, and that chart behind you, essentially, right?
Okay.
Yeah, you betcha. I'll let you carry on
Oh, okay.
talking too much.
No, no. Pilot of the multi-engine aircraft. Oh, he was a pilot of a multi-engine aircraft and was an electronic officer. Few flew admiral's plane in 1942 to Douglas El Segundo, Lockheed Burbank, and China Lake for 4 years. And then in the summer of 42, he visited through 44, I guess, visited classified Douglas, Santa Monica, and Caltech facilities 3 to 4 times each.
Yeah,
And then in 1943 to 1945, he spent much time at China Lake facility, modifying rockets for testing, about 40 visits, and working on their alien projects. And then in the
So, alien, when Tompkins talks about alien, that is literally a code word for anti-gravity, essentially, or these
oh,
types of technologies, essentially, right?
okay,
Free
okay,
energy, anti-gravity,
right,
thing to do with charge clusters, essentially. Yeah.
right, right. Okay, and then in June of 43, he knew Army was developing and testing BW, some that are bacterial and some that are lethal viruses. BW, what's that?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I don't know.
Huh.
I do know that
Hmm.
Tompkins, he was a nuclear missile guy. So when it talks about rockets, Tompkins ended up being,
Biological warfare.
oh, well, yeah,
Biological warfare. Yeah, just popped into my head. Okay, yeah.
I should actually know that because I took the course when I was in the Navy. It was nuclear, chemical, and biological warfare, it was called.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's fine. Yeah,
yeah,
it's yep. Who would
yeah,
have?
but so that's he didn't really do much biological stuff, luckily.
Hmm.
Most of his stuff was aerospace engineering and
Yeah.
that type of thing, right? So yeah.
But he knew that the Army was developing and testing this.
Oh
So
yes.
that's what this is saying basically is that he knew, not that he was doing it, but that he knew that it was
It's because of
happening.
his Q clearance again,
Right.
right?
And
That's
that
why.
some were bacterial and some that were lethal, right?
Yep,
So
yep,
yeah.
yep.
Um, and then in March of 46, he left the Navy, honorable discharge, Pasadena. And then he sold hosiery for his father, real
I
silk
know.
mills. That's so wild.
Funny, eh?
No
Like that.
wonder why the secretaries, the Nordic secretaries liked him so much. He could probably get them a really good deal on silk hosiery.
That's hilarious.
He worked for his father selling roofing materials. Well,
That's
that
interesting too, yeah.
then he stopped working for his father in 47, got a job at Northrop with security clearance in laboratory designing airplanes without wings.
Hmm.
Um,
That sounds
interesting.
interesting, doesn't it? Now,
Yes.
now the B-2 is a flying wing, and I think it was the Norton brothers or Horton brothers. The Germans built flying wings as well.
Ah,
Now, are we talking about a flying wing here, or are we talking about an anti-gravity craft?
yeah.
I don't know.
That's
I don't
that's a
know.
good question,
Yeah,
right?
what they're talking about there, but yeah.
Okay, so now we're at where he quit in 49.
Yep.
In June of 49, he quit, went to work for North American Aviation, old Vultee facility, making prototypes from some extraterrestrial materials on a classified project, allegedly well known in that facility that some were extraterrestrial source. And then in November of
So,
49,
oh,
oh, I'm
sorry.
sorry.
So that's 49. Remember Roswell happened in what, 47, I think?
Yes.
So this is probably material.
Ties in with that, right?
Yeah,
Because he stopped working for his father around that time that Roswell happened.
yeah. And then went
So,
to work for these
and then
guys,
went to
and
work for these guys. Yep, that
yeah,
makes
now he's back engineering extraterrestrial uh
aircraft or yes,
yeah,
spacecraft, whatever. Yep.
spacecraft, power systems, communication systems, anything that's essentially there, right? They're trying to back engineer.
And then
Yeah.
in 49 November, he left North American and worked for Lockheed for 4 months. And then this is interesting. March
Hmm.
1st, 1950, Bill got flash remote viewing question mark, went to work at DAC,
Douglas Aircraft Company.
Douglas, yep,
There. Yeah.
used his model expertise to get job in wind tunnel model shop.
Very
Interesting.
cool. Right. So now he's building wind tunnel models. That is
Yeah,
so cool.
that's
Um,
fascinating.
his if I did like one thing on his resume, I would be happy. His resume is literally pages.
Yeah,
There's pages and pages of the stuff that he did that was so cool.
it's
Right.
just amazing. It
Yeah.
blows you away. And what a time to be alive too.
Yeah.
So 1950 in April. By this time, his models were famous, and was asked to build model of Endymion yacht. I don't know what that yacht is, but
No
interesting.
idea. Yeah. Yeah.
And then in May of 1950, he met Mary, his
Mm,
wife, soon to be wife, I guess, at Aragon Ballroom in Santa Monica. Isn't that a character in Lord of the Rings? I don't know.
yeah.
Married September 1951. Um,
So look at when he met her and when he married her. It's like about 9 months or something. Like
yeah, he
he was
knew.
moving. He was, yeah, he knew, and he was moving quick. I
Yep.
love it. Love it.
No messing around, just
Yep.
yep, get right down to business.
Yep.
So March of 1951, from 1951 through 1963 in the think tank for 12.5 years. Worked for W.B. Klemperer and Elmer Wheaton.
Yep.
And then and also in 1951 transferred by Donald W. Douglas Sr. to engineering as draftsman, working for Pete I'm not sure how to say that name.
Mhm.
Duyan
Yep.
maybe. Um, and then 1951 in June, he was sent to a think tank for begin study of aliens,
Mhm.
great government secrecy, conceived naval moon base. Well, maybe I had a Freudian slip there. Concealed
Yep.
naval moon base and planetary naval stations.
Okay, so
Um,
that's really important there. He conceived a naval moon base
yes.
in 1951, people.
Uh-huh.
This is all stuff that happened.
Hmm.
As we go along and learn about Tompkins, when we read through the books, we're going to learn actually what happened, the real truth, right?
Right.
So truly amazing. And planetary naval systems, planetary
Yes.
naval stations.
Stations. Yeah. So
So
that means other planets as well,
yeah, so
right?
I can tell you right now, that I know that there are over 60 outposts in our solar system alone.
Yeah.
So that's what they were starting to conceive and build and look at. And
They were planning. Yeah.
now there are 60. And
Yeah.
now it's Solar Warden, but Space Force has taken over Solar Warden. So Space Force is actually the whole deal now, but it's
Yep.
the whole Solar Warden thing, right? And we'll
Yeah.
talk
And
more about that as we move along. Yeah.
this isn't just pie in the sky stuff either. I mean, this is actually literally happening. I mean, the Space Force, I mean, I don't know if anybody has noticed, but it's a real thing. It's
Yeah.
not just, we're not just making this up. The Space Force actually exists. There are,
Space Force
I
is
was
right behind me there. Yeah.
I went for a walk on the beach the other day, and there were a bunch of flags at this one memorial point where they have a bunch of different types of flags, and Space Force was one of them.
You sent me a
So
picture of that.
yes,
Yes, I love it. Thank
and
you
I
for
was
that.
like,
Yeah.
wow. So yeah, it's not
Yeah.
it's real, people.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So okay, so where were we? We're down here. So upgraded to associate engineer after 6 weeks working in secret tank, and that was in August of 1951.
Yep.
So
So
now
and
we're
this is right around the time that the Rockwell space chart behind you he's first started working on it.
yeah, right.
1952, I think, was the date, from what I remember.
Well,
But
maybe it'll yeah, I think it might
it
say, but I don't
yeah, it
know.
might be in here. It might
Might
not
be
though.
in here, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll continue reading.
Yeah.
So September 1951 worked with Ed Sullivan. Are you talking about
Wow.
like Ed Sullivan, the Ed Sullivan show?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow,
I
really?
don't know actually.
That seems odd.
Yeah.
Dr. Walter Riedel? No, Riedel, because that's German and the E's that pronounce. The second one is always pronounced. So it's Riedel and Hurd, Hurd of CSI, Civilian Saucer Investigation. It's a different type of CSI than the one that's on TV, I think.
No kidding. This is
And then
the
he married
original.
Mary. He married Mary. Say that five
Yeah.
times fast. Um, yeah, and then CSI Interactions allegedly met young Jacques Vallée in this
In,
context. Time unclear
interest. Interesting.
in
Yeah.
52. And he conceived NORAD,
Okay.
Command Control Center Underground, and that was in August of 1952.
Let's stop there and talk a little bit about NORAD, because my
Yeah.
father was part of NORAD.
Hmm.
He was in the Cuban Missile Crisis, and when it says conceived NORAD Command Center underground, this is Cheyenne Mountain. Cheyenne Mountain was the headquarters of NORAD when it first started, and William Tompkins designed the whole Cheyenne Mountain facility, but he also had a lot to do with NORAD itself, because what people don't understand about Tompkins is he came out of the DM-18 nuclear missile program. So remember when I was talking about rockets before? He was always probably destined to set up NORAD, the nuclear missile defense for North America, and Solar Warden. So I want to stop and say that without Tompkins, we would have been taken over by the Nazi and the Sakaar agenda. We would have had no, like, nothing. We wouldn't have been in this position, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If it wasn't for Tompkins conceiving both things that have protected us, we literally wouldn't be sitting here talking about it. So the honor is just absolutely incredible with NORAD, especially with Tompkins, right?
What is the DM-18 that you mentioned? What is that?
It's just they're going to talk about it in a second here. It's just it's type of nuclear missile. I'm not sure if it was the very first, because again, he conceived NORAD, so he was.
I see it down here.
Yeah, so he came out of that program, and that's also why he ended up being working on the Saturn V with NASA. Right? Another rocket, right? So that was always his sort of specialty. So he did rockets and nuclear missile stuff, but he also did all of this alien space reproduction and
back engineering.
Yeah. Again, if I did 1/10 or 1% of what he did, it'd be incredible, right?
Yeah.
I'll let you carry on.
The think tank concluded UFOs were extraterrestrial spacecraft. And then in 1953 conceived Nova type space trucks in the tank before Apollo.
Okay, so let's just stop and talk about Nova.
What is a Nova? What
Nova,
is that?
These were rockets that dwarfed the Saturn V. I don't know exactly, but I'm going to say it was like 3 times the size as of the Saturn V. And this was conceived before Apollo for that naval moon base.
Okay.
Right? Because remember, he designed this naval moon base. This whole Nova system was designed for that. Now, whether or not it came to fruition, I don't know, but I actually do know who to ask, because Frank Chille might know if that was ever came to fruition with the Nova project. But that's really important, because it was before the Saturn program, and it was way bigger and way more grand than the Saturn program ever was.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So where was I? And then in December of 1954, he began to help establish requirements for naval spaceships in think tank.
Yep.
So they had spaceships back then. So
well, they were designing them. This is Tompkins conceiving Solar Warden and everything that needs to be designed for Solar Warden. And everything that he designed was built. Every single thing that Tompkins asked for, they never came to him and said, we don't have enough money or there's a budget or anything. They just built everything that he designed, everything that's on that chart behind you. Also, I want to say too that that's the chart for the civilian NASA. There is probably another chart for Solar Warden.
The chart behind me, you mean?
Yeah. So this is the NASA program, and it's the NASA program starting from where Tompkins conceived it, and it goes down to the year 2100.
Right.
And this is all the stuff that has to happen in the civilian program. But having said that, and I've never seen it or nobody's ever talked about it, but I'm positive there had to have been a second chart like this for the Solar Warden program.
Yeah.
The Tompkins conceived, right? Yeah. So
sense.
I'll let you carry on.
Okay. He made drawings of kilometer-long naval spacecraft.
Kilometer-long, people. Kilometer-long. In fact, 17 kilometers.
Wow.
10 miles long.
Send to white Sands Proving Ground to Evaluate V2s and Launcher Designs. MTM-622 Declassified Publication in Think Tank. Transferred in 55, he transferred a new DM-18 Missile Design Group, promoted to Assistant Group Engineer.
Yep.
And then 55 again, he DM-18 Firing at Cape 17B.
Yep.
Unclassified Part 2 of MTM published. Learned of Project Horizon by General Trudeau to put base on moon.
So that, okay, let's stop
That was
there
in
again.
56. That was February of 56. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Very important. So they're lining up to put a base on the moon again.
Right.
Unfortunately, the Nazis were there in the summer of 1942
Yeah.
on the moon, right? We know
Yeah.
that now.
Right.
Yeah.
So they developed naval space cruiser and combat spacecraft design concepts in 56, and then they worked with Harold Adams on DC-10 design.
That's interesting. I never, yeah, that's a plane, the DC-10, right? A passenger plane. Yep.
Right. And then in September of 1957, NORAD created and Tompkins Command Center design used.
Yep.
And then in May of 58, he was promoted to engineering section chief on the SIV.
That's the Saturn V.
IVB.
That's the Saturn V.
Oh, Saturn V project for
But it's the B. See how it's the Saturn V, but it says B?
B, yes.
The B part of the Saturn V is like the middle part of the Saturn V, and that was Tompkins' baby.
Oh, okay.
That's why it says B. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Now in 59, the Army produces Project Horizon to put an Army base on the moon. So that's when they actually produced the project to do that.
Yeah.
In 1960, stated industry has had access to a sizable level of extraterrestrial space vehicle parts since 1959.
Yep.
And then in 61, designed equatorial launch facility for NOVA. In 1961, began Apollo design work. And then pre-NASA briefing on vertical checkout concept. In 62, in the beginning of
let's just stop there and talk a little bit about that. What was happening is they were using at first the V2 rockets that came over from Germany, and what was going on is they were building them horizontally, and then when they would stand them up to shoot them off, they were exploding on the launch pad, like lots of them happen. And Tompkins just said, "Hey, you guys, we need to build a vertical assembly building. We, instead of laying them down and building them, we build them this way and leave them that way and then shoot them off."
Yeah.
It was a very, very
That
simple concept in his mind.
Yeah.
But what had to happen to make it happen was pretty incredible. So this is where Dr. DeBus jumps in.
Right.
And Tompkins, like it says here, he had a presentation with Dr. DeBus and Werner von Braun, but Tompkins did something he wasn't supposed to do, and I can't remember what company he was working for at the time. It'll talk about it in a second here. Okay. But he, instead of going to his boss and saying, "Hey, this is what we need to do, stand these things up vertically," he went to the head of NASA, Werner von Braun, and Dr. DeBus and had this presentation. Well, he got fired because of it.
Yeah.
So
it does say that here, right? He says that it says that he published his new packaging concept for Saturn V-B Apollo, and then on April 1st, the NASA facilities memo written by Tompkins and Smith, watered down briefing to DAC corporate, and then he was fired by Douglas in 1963, and it looks like that happened in May. And then he was recommended by Dr. DeBus to work for North American Aviation, still on management committees at NASA, and started to work for Rocketdyne. Yeah.
So at this point, Dr. DeBus is like, and remember that Dr. DeBus is the head of this German secret space program. He's much like William Tompkins, like literally, he is much like William Tompkins ends up being. And Dr. DeBus saw the brilliance of Tompkins. And
Yeah.
after he was fired, he made arrangements for him to go to work with North American because he wanted Tompkins to be part of NASA still,
Right.
right? The whole deal. So that's, yeah, I just wanted to add that.
So there he was responsible for ionic propulsion facilities for Rocketdyne. So that's
Interesting.
very
Ionic.
interesting.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
interesting, right? Yep.
Shows on Rocketdyne organization chart. And then the first successful launch of the Saturn C1 was in 1965, December of 1965.
Yep.
So from 1963 to 1966, he stayed with Rocketdyne for 3 years and then he left. And then in 66, architectural office in Kern County American Institute of Building Design, became mayor of Lake Isabella, briefings on architecture and design for 6 months. That's really wild.
Yeah, he
Um,
was a mayor, right?
yeah, yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
then in December of 1966, he formed William M. Tompkins and Associates, W.M. Tompkins and Associates, corporate development systems engineering.
Yep.
And then in July of 67, TRW career begins in product engineering lab, staff to the president.
So the
Uh,
TRW, it's this is interesting because used to race and I built race motors and all that kind of thing, and TRW built forged race pistons. That was
mm,
what they sold. But TRW was the largest think tank that has ever been conceived ever, and it'll talk a little bit more about TRW.
yeah.
I think there were 170 separate laboratories in the TRW umbrella, and they all worked on alien projects or biochemical warfare or
Yeah.
things like that, right? Just to put it in perspective of what TRW is. It was, this is really, really important to some of the stuff that we'll go into in a little bit here. So I'll let you keep reading.
PRW, July 67 to March 71, I guess is when he worked there.
Yeah.
Aliens have bases on the moon, he says in
Okay.
1968.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that because see how the next one says witness live video of Neil Armstrong.
Yes.
So what happened was they had a relay station. I believe it was in Australia, and the stuff would come down. It would go to Australia, and then it would go to NASA, but it wasn't live. It wasn't
Hmm.
live, and they set it up that way because what Tompkins saw, because Tompkins actually saw the live feed. He didn't see what we saw.
Yeah.
He saw the live feed, and there's a drawing that Tompkins made of, I believe it's 6 huge spacecraft sitting on the edge of the crater. That's
Yep.
what he saw
Hmm.
while the NASA guys were over here. So nobody ever saw that part of it, but
Yep.
Tompkins talks about it, right? So
Yep.
that's what they're talking about when he said aliens have bases on the moon.
Hmm.
The Germans were up there in the summer of 1942, along with the everyone that was with them,
Right.
essentially. So that's why he's made that statement.
So then he had a commendation letter written about Bill Tompkins by TRW, and then he left them in 1971, formed Land Ocean Systems Corporation, and then he was the president from March 71 to September 75. Then he
Yeah,
left them in 76 and joined Lockheed. TRW friend told him to talk to Lockheed guy working on ASW with Lockheed P3s. Using systems engineering management programs, Bill put together a program with 4 blocks presented to the Navy and then Air Force for DM-18s. Navy commander wanted it, did complete program. It's massive. Worked on systems engineering for 7 months. And
mm,
then he joined American Jet Corporation, and then he left them in 79. So he was there for 2 years. Then he
yeah.
started Teledyne Ryan in San Diego in
Started out.
1980.
Yeah,
Then he joined General Dynamics in 1981, and then he left them in 84. So he was there for 3 years. Then he moved to Medford, Oregon
yeah,
in 1984, attended Navy League 1984 National Convention in Seattle in 84. And then he created Southwest Navy League Council with 37 top Navy officers, the Special Projects Group, pilots from various employers, and all working on alien interaction projects in 1985.
Yep.
And then at the end of 85, it says between 80 and 89, 80 and 99, he was a Navy League State VP.
Yep.
Wow, that's a
Yep.
long time.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. The Navy
Interviews
League
with,
was really important to him, actually. Yeah.
and then in 91, interviews with John Timmerman and Mike Swords of CUFOs. I don't know what that is, but
Yeah, I don't know either.
sure. And then in 94, he attended Navy League 1994 National Convention in San Diego. In 99, he moved from Oregon to San Diego. And in 2002, he was interviewed by Brad Sparks and Tom Tulete. Bob Wood now has that transcript. And in 2009, he was interviewed by phone with Bob Wood. So by
Yeah.
Bob Wood. So that's, I
So
guess, the
this
last
is
interview we had.
there's the connection to Dr. Robert Wood, who we're honoring
Yeah.
today, along with Tompkins' work and stuff too, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's Tompkins' resume. Like you said, it's absolutely incredible. And once we jump into these shows that we're going to do, we're going to actually read through all of Tompkins' work, and the stuff that's in here is mind blowing. It really is. Yeah.
All right. Yeah,
That's
it
why I
would
decided
be.
to just do the whole thing. Let's just tell the whole story, essentially, right? So I think the only other thing we have is
The
that
acknowledgements.
acknowledgement.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, so this is as the editor of this autobiography requested by Bill Tompkins, I am particularly grateful to my three co-editors, John Wenger, Will Wakely, and Michael Sala, all of whom were present at Bill's funeral service. Each of them has made significant contributions, both physical and intellectual, and I am pleased to have had their constant support and encouragement to keep going and to get Bill's book 2 finished. Each of them were involved with personal conversations with Bill Tompkins on many occasions and have been most helpful in guiding Bill's written remarks into the second book of his autobiography. John Wenger is an intellectual giant and had deep empathy with Bill Tompkins and his inner goals, grasping Bill's big picture views clearly. Will Wakely was a good friend and neighbor of Bill in San Diego, California. Bill met often with him and shared events and details about his amazing life. And Michael Sala, a genuine UFO researcher and prolific writer, jumped on the opportunity to interview Bill as a new witness to the secret projects of the Navy. Bob Wood had the reputation of long-time involvement in authenticating alleged leaked UFO-related documents
Yep.
and was sought out by Bill Tompkins to help write his autobiography. So that's really saying something there.
Yep.
One person who stimulated me to complete Selected by Extraterrestials was Major George Filer, who recognized the importance of Bill's story immediately. Two other people who helped to get Bill's story to the public on the internet were Frank Chille and his friend Jeff Renz with his TV show. With
Radio
Bill
show.
appearing
Radio
with
show.
his radio show, sorry, with Bill appearing dozens of times.
Yep.
Their exposure of Bill Tompkins' story has caused many people to ask me, when is book 2 coming out? Frank's and Jeff's determination is greatly appreciated. I also thank my wonderful wife, Linda, not only for never complaining about the time I spent in chronicling Bill's words, but even beginning to understand the difficulty of sharing his story with an incredulous public. Robert M. Wood, March 28th, 2020.
Yeah. So, and I just wanted to say that they talked about Jeff Brents here and Frank Chille. I've had contact with 5 men that knew Tompkins personally. So it was Frank Chille, Jeff Rents, Dr. Robert Wood, and then David Wilcock. David Wilcock actually produced the show Above Majestic, and Tompkins passed away halfway through the movie. And the other person, I can't.
Michael Sala, Dr. Michael Sala.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Dr. Michael Sala, and I've had contact with all of them. So I guess that's kind of why Ligia and I are doing this, is because first of all, Frank has been on Ligia's show a few times. Ligia knows Frank. Yeah, the story of Tompkins is just incredible. And we're talking about Solar Warden here, which is essentially the secret space program that the Navy ran. There was another secret space program that the Air Force was kind of part of, and that unfortunately was the Dark Fleet or the Nazi secret space program. So even our Air Force, up to a certain point, was involved with this. It's in some of Dr. Sala's, there's a whole book written about it with Dr. Sala. So it's been wonderful to be able to talk about Bill Tompkins, and in the future, we have planned lots and lots and lots of shows. We are going to go through all of Tompkins' work. It might take us years, probably, but it is absolutely worthwhile because the story is incredible, and this whole thing that is behind you is the NASA Rockwell space chart that NASA is still using, essentially. And even Elon Musk is still using that chart behind you, essentially, right? So it's
Interesting. I
something
did
to
not know
remember.
that.
Yeah.
Humanity commands unlimited, whoops, I went away. Commands unlimited material resources from the moon and asteroids. Unlimited safe solar unit energy for Earth, question mark. That part is really interesting. And that's supposed to happen between 2023 and 2028. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And if you go on Ligia's Patreon channel, there is a lot more information on electrogravitics and even some of the nuclear fusion devices that the Navy brought out through the Pius patents that Stavati Aerospace is working on, because we've interviewed Chris Beskar, what, 3 times now, I think.
Yes.
And I've had contact with Chris for quite a long time, 3.5 years now, actually, with Stavati, and then personal contact with Chris for 1.5 years. So we're just bringing all this to you because we really wanted to honor Dr. Robert Wood for all the incredible work that he did to bring Selected by Extraterrestrials forward, but also all the other incredible work that he did as well. They allude to with the burn memo and things like that, right? So thanks again for having me on, Ligia.
Yes, thank you for being on. And just, once again, thank you to Dr. Wood for all of his work and his contributions to making the future a better place and
to humanity,
increasing the potentials of everything and in a positive direction. So
absolutely.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wood.
Dr. Wood and William Tompkins planned an absolutely incredible future for us. And again, Solar Warden, the secret space programs, all of the technologies will come forward eventually, right? Yeah.
They planted the seeds, and now it's up to us to make them grow. So
yeah, that's
looking forward to it.
Beautifully put, well put. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. So thanks again for coming on, Ed, and for discussing all of this wonderful stuff with us, and also just bringing all of this to the table in your, and you're just very good at this. So I appreciate that. And thank you everyone for watching. And I appreciate any comments and likes and subscriptions that I get. And also check out, as Ed has mentioned, my Potentials podcast on Patreon. And I'm also on Rumble, but I don't have very much on there yet. But we'll get there.
Yeah.
You can also find me on TikTok and on Telegram. And those are really so.
And Ligia's been a singer-songwriter all her life. Some people may not know that, but you can find songs and stuff of hers as well too out there.
It's also on my YouTube channel. Like I believe on the Potentials channel, I have a little section of my music if you want to check that out too.
And it's amazing. Yeah. I have a CD here, and I have a really, really awesome stereo to play it with, and it's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll be getting back with you everyone soon, and thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.